Billy Jack Chastain, an ice-struck driver, was arrested and charged with murder, except there was no evidence, no witnesses, and no body. The case seemed impossible to prosecute. Yet Chastain was accused of killing a woman and dumping her body in a rural area. As the investigation unfolded, inconsistencies in the prosecution's story began to surface. The police had received an anonymous tip about Chastain's alleged crime, but the tipster remained unknown. The prosecution's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and questionable testimony. The prosecution claimed Chastain had a history of violence and had previously threatened the victim. However, many questioned the credibility of the prosecution's witnesses. The lack of concrete evidence raised eyebrows, and some wondered if Chastain was being framed. Just as the trial was about to conclude, a surprising twist emerged. A former cellmate of Chastain's came forward, alleging that Chastain had confessed to the crime while in jail. But was the cellmate's testimony reliable? Or was it a desperate attempt to gain favor with the prosecution? As the jury deliberated, one thing was certain: the case against Billy Jack Chastain was far from airtight. Would justice be served, or would the truth remain shrouded in doubt? One question lingered: what really happened on that fateful night? Subscribe to True Crime and Scene now. As the jury deliberated, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The prosecution's case had been built on shaky ground, with circumstantial evidence and questionable testimony. The surprise testimony of Chastain's former cellmate had thrown a wrench into the works, claiming that Chastain had confessed to the crime while in jail. But was the cellmate's testimony reliable? Or was it a desperate attempt to gain favor with the prosecution? After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty. Chastain's face fell as the judge sentenced him to life in prison without parole. But just as it seemed like justice had been served, a bombshell revelation shook the case to its core. A private investigator, hired by Chastain's defense team, uncovered new evidence that cast doubt on the prosecution's case. A security camera had caught a glimpse of a person lurking around the area where the victim was last seen. But it wasn't Chastain. The footage was grainy, but it was clear that the person was taller and thinner than Chastain. As the investigation continued, more questions arose. Who was the mysterious figure in the security footage? Was Chastain telling the truth about his innocence? The private investigator dug deeper, following a trail of clues that led to a surprising twist. A shocking revelation turned everything upside down. The cellmate who testified against Chastain was found to have a history of snitching on other inmates in exchange for reduced sentences. It seemed likely that he had fabricated his testimony to gain favor with the prosecution. But what about Chastain's alleged confession? Was it just a desperate attempt to get attention? The private investigators' discovery of new evidence sent shockwaves through the case. A security camera had captured a person lurking around the area where the victim was last seen. But it wasn't Billy Jack Chastain. The footage was grainy, but it was clear that the person was taller and thinner than Chastain. This new evidence raised more questions than answers. As the investigation continued, the private investigator dug deeper, following a trail of clues that led to a surprising twist. A former employee of the company that owned the ice truck came forward, alleging that they had seen one of the company's owners arguing with the victim just days before her disappearance. The employee claimed that the argument had been intense, and the owner's behavior had seemed suspicious. The investigator began to suspect that the company's owner might be involved in the victim's disappearance. Further investigation revealed that the owner had a history of shady business dealings and had been under investigation for other crimes. It seemed like the owner had a motive to silence the victim. As the case unfolded, a shocking revelation turned everything upside down. The cellmate who had testified against Chastain was found to have a connection to the company's owner. It seemed that the cellmate had been coached to testify against change for a reduced sentence. The prosecution's case was built on shaky ground, and the new evidence raised serious doubts about Chastain's guilt. The investigator continued to dig deeper, uncovering more evidence that pointed to the company's owner as the prime suspect. The owner's alibi for the night of the disappearance was shaky, and witnesses came forward who claimed to have seen the owner near the area where the victim was last seen. As the investigation into Billy Jack Chastain's alleged crime continued, a bombshell revelation shook the case to its core. The private investigator's discovery of a mysterious figure in the security footage, combined with the testimony of the former employee, pointed to a sinister plot involving the company's owner. But just as it seemed like the truth was finally coming to light, a new twist emerged. The company's owner, it turned out, had a dark secret. A former associate came forward, alleging that the owner had a history of manipulating and exploiting others for personal gain. This revelation raised questions about the owner's motive for potentially framing Chastain. As the investigation dug deeper, more inconsistencies in the prosecution's case began to surface. It seemed that the prosecution's key witness had been coached to testify against Chastain, and the physical evidence was circumstantial at best. The private investigator's findings suggested that the real killer might still be on the loose, and Chastain's fate hung precariously in the balance. Just when it seemed like the case couldn't get any more complicated, new evidence emerged that threw everything off kilter. A security camera caught a glimpse of a person lurking around the area where the victim was last seen, and the description didn't match Chastain. The investigation was back at square one, with more questions than answers. In a chilling turn of events, another body was discovered, bearing eerie similarities to the first victim. The MO was identical, and the killer seemed to be taunting the police with each new crime scene. The police were on high alert, racing against time to catch the real killer before more lives were lost. As the bodies piled up, the pressure mounted on the police to solve the case. The private investigator worked tirelessly, following every lead, no matter how small. Chastain's family held on to hope, praying that justice would prevail. But with each new twist, the truth seemed further away than ever. As the investigation into Billy Jack Chastain's alleged crime continued, the private investigator's discovery of the mysterious figure in the security footage raised more questions than answers. Who was this person, and what was their connection to the victim? The investigators' determination to uncover the truth led them to dig deeper, following a trail of clues that would change the course of the case forever. The investigators' search led them to an unexpected source, a former acquaintance of Chastain's, who revealed a shocking secret about Chastain's past. According to the acquaintance, Chastain had been involved in a similar incident several years ago, where a person had gone missing under suspicious circumstances. The acquaintance's testimony seemed credible, but it also raised questions about Chastain's innocence. As the investigator dug deeper, they discovered a web of deceits surrounding Chastain's alibi. Witnesses who had initially corroborated Chastain's story began to come forward, revealing that they had been coerced or bribed to provide false testimony. The prosecution's case was crumbling, and Chastain's innocence seemed more plausible than ever. Just when it seemed like the truth was finally coming to light, a shocking revelation turned the case upside down. A forensic analysis of the evidence found at the crime scene revealed a DNA match to an unexpected individual, a person who had been in custody for years, convicted of a different crime. The DNA match raised questions about the true perpetrator's identity and whether Chastain was indeed innocent. The investigators' pursuit of justice led them down a dark path, uncovering secrets and lies that went far beyond the original case. As the stakes grew higher, the investigator realized that they were dealing with a complex web of deceit and corruption that threatened to destroy lives and reputations. The DNA match to an unexpected individual sent shockwaves through the investigation. The The revelation that the true perpetrator might have been in custody for years raised more questions than answers. Was this a case of mistaken identity? Or was there more to the story? As the investigation continued, a new lead emerged that would change the course of the case forever. A former prison inmate came forward, claiming to have information about the true perpetrator. According to the inmate, the person in custody was not acting alone and had been involved in a larger conspiracy. The inmate's testimony revealed a complex web of deceit and corruption that went far beyond the original case. It seemed that the true perpetrator had been working with others to cover their tracks, and the investigation was just scratching the surface. As the investigation dug deeper, a shocking revelation turned the case upside down. The true perpetrator, it turned out, was not the person in custody, but someone much closer to the investigation. The revelation raised questions about how the investigation had been handled and whether justice had been served. The revelation sent the investigation into a tailspin. The police were forced to re-examine the evidence and re-interview witnesses. The case was more complex than ever, and the stakes were higher than anyone could have imagined. Will Billy Jack Chastain's name be cleared? Or will he spend the rest of his life in prison for a crime he didn't commit? The investigation continues, and the truth is slowly coming to light. But one thing is certain: justice will be served, and the truth will be revealed.